Anyway, there's the farmhouse. You saw earlier in the pictures we stood outside. That was built in 1600. And it looks amazing now, but I remember when we moved in there in 1975 when my grandfather died. It was when I moved in there as a kid, it was a really spooky, scary place because in a typical kind of farming way, family farm that is, everyone had done a bit of bodging, but no one actually spent any money on it because they always think the next generation would do it. And it got to the point where some of the rooms you couldn't go in because you'd fall through the floor. I remember the attic room was like that. My dad always locked the door because he was worried about us falling through the floor. So my parents spent a lot of time and money restoring it because they had to really. They had to replace the roof. A lot of the windows have been blocked in by the window tax. Like this one here was blocked in when I was a kid. They unblocked that. The garden looks amazing now, but when I was a kid, that was all potatoes. Because in his retirement, my grandfather had just grown potatoes to feed to the cows. That was what he did. So it took a lot of time to get it into that condition now, but it's a nice old place, but it's still very drafty and cold because it hasn't got double glazing, it hasn't got cavity wall insulation, you know. But there's still a lot of family history around the farm. This one is JPC, James Pullin Cornock, AD 1858. That's on one of the farm buildings. My middle name is Pullin because the Pullins were the people who had the farm before us, and I've kept that Pullin name going because my son Jack is now Jack Pullin Cornock. So it's a nice link with the past. Because the Pullin family had the farm till 1822, and then we married into the family and got the farm, if you like. It's quite a good way of getting a farm, isn't it? I think my two sons, I should give them a bit of advice. Join young farmers. Make sure you find someone who's got no brothers and got a farm. If only it was that easy in life, eh? Now we're back in the hay meadow there, and there we go, we're haymaking there. It's not something that everyone does these days because it's a lot of work, but also it's very difficult to get a window of a week of good weather in this country, isn't it, to make hay? It's a lot easier to make silage in one day than it is to rely on hay making weather for 1 week. You've got to make hay while the sun shines, as they say. So we ted it all out like that, and then the baler comes in. We do a lot of contract work with a company called Sampson's who are not far from us, principally because it's just all the little bits and pieces we do. It's not worth owning a baler again. We make 600 bales of hay a year probably. It's not worth us buying a baler for that, so we get them to come in and they bale it up. There we go, we stack it up there. My brother's on the trailer there. So it's a lot of work really, but I do love, you know what it's like, if any of you smelt fresh hay, you know what that smell, you can't beat it, can you? It's beautiful. And my kids love it. Suddenly I think when you have children you suddenly really appreciate a lot more things really. Haymaking for my kids is just like, whoa, this is fantastic. Of course, they haven't got to lift the bales, they just got to go and look at them. But we had a picnic on them this year with the kids, they loved it. So we're into about August time now, it starts getting a bit misty and autumnal, end of August. Again, this picture was taken on top of Tiverton Hill. There's another dent in my car roof as I took this picture. But this picture was taken at 6 o'clock in the morning, and you can tell, I'm on the way to work actually, and you can tell I'm late for work, because can you see the cows stood in the gateway there? They're just waiting, because cows are a creature of time and habit, and they kind of know when milking time is, and if you're late, they go, what time do you call this? We've been waiting here with a full udder since it's 6 o'clock. But I drove into the farmyard and went out and got them in the field, and there you go, 6 o'clock in the morning, a lovely misty morning. I know everyone loves a beautiful sunset, but there's some beautiful sunrises. You just got to get up early to see them, really. And then, so this autumn fruits start coming. Of course, you know what these are, don't you? Well, I had an interesting story. Is when I had the book published, I spoke to this editor called Jasper, who was quite a trendy kind of uni guy. And he rang me up, he texted me and said, Rich, not quite sure where the black currants fit in with the farming. It's kind of funny because you, from the countryside, you kind of know what these things are, and you forget that not everyone does, do they? You know, and your experiences are different depending on where you come from. So you live in the middle of a city, you're not probably going to see loads of these elderberries, and you don't know what they are. You also won't see someone like this very often. That's Graham the ferreter. I was on Radio 4, the farming programme. We went ferreting with Radio 4 with him back last January. What I did is, on the year that I photographed the farm, I photographed everyone involved with the farm as well. I thought it's nice to have a record. So I photographed the vet, I photographed the cattle haulier, I photographed Graham the ferreter. But he's the only one who made the book because he's the only one that the editor decided was interesting enough. And he's a bit quirky, isn't he? I mean, you're not going to meet a bloke like that every day, are you? He comes round and gets the rabbits. He's an interesting bloke. He is a real, they don't make him like Graham anymore. 50 years ago, there would have been loads of people like that around, wouldn't there? So I'm going to show you now the picture that the editor decided was too shocking for publication. There we go. Now this is the picture of the rabbits after they've been gutted and hung up. And it's interesting because, some people, the editor was worried about putting this in the book because he said, some people would be upset and offended by this. But the thing is, it's very easy to be upset and offended when you've got a full stomach and the Tesco's down the road, isn't it? Because the thing is, 50 years ago or during the war, everyone went out and got rabbits and stuff. And blimey, you weren't worried about what their picture looked like because it was the only meat you could get. But now we're all kind of like used to something wrapped in plastic, aren't we? That is kind of comes and you can't really tell what it is and everything. So it's interesting. Of course, you get the alternative side of it. You get people like Jamie Oliver who still kind of use stuff like this occasionally and things. And what's interesting is this bloke does sell these into a butcher's in Bristol, but they are magic rabbits as well because at some point between Titherington and Bristol they turn into organic rabbits. You can't beat a magic rabbit, can you? If you're in Bristol, that's what you want to see on the label, isn't it? I don't know. Anyway, we're coming on now to there's a cow calving. When I was dealing with the editor of the book, he did say to me, "Oh, Rich, you don't see any pictures of a cow calving." And I went, "Well, are you sure you want a picture of a cow calving?" And he went, "Yeah." So I sent him a CD or DVD with about 50 pictures, and then he contacted me and goes, "Ooh, actually, I see what you mean." I think he thought it was going to be all kind of flowers and, all beautiful and everything like that. It's not that lovely. So this is the one we settled for, and then this is the calf. It was literally probably a minute old, and you can see the mum licking it there. It's not even got its eyes open. But you can see what they're like a little bit later on. They were about 2 weeks old there. That's where the little camera came in when I was doing these pictures, because I literally was feeding the calves that morning, and you can see I could just whip it out of my pocket with one hand, press the button, take a picture, and I hadn't had to worry about setting it all up, because if I had, I probably wouldn't have captured that moment when it's dribbling the milk there, and it's a very natural picture because it just looked at me and went, "Whoo." Anyway, so we're into autumn now, and we got some nice pictures there. That's actually field maples, which are the same trees that were down the aisle of Westminster Abbey when William and Kate got married. They were put there in pots by Charlie Boy. And there's poor Dad grafting away again. He's up the tree there. This is a particularly bad picture, because if you look at him, he's chucking the pears down to my sister, and my nephew's eating them. So what hope has he got of filling that basket? It's terrible, isn't it? But we are lucky to have these fruit trees on the farm, and also to have things like these are Jupiters, and these are varieties that you won't find in Tesco's or Morrison's or whatever. And it's interesting, if you go into a supermarket, you'll always find the standards, won't you? Discovery and Cox's and Pink Lady and stuff. But there's a lot of varieties out there you just don't see, and that the reason for that, I think, is because they got to focus on what will keep. There's not only, I mean, some of the fruit in the supermarket is nice, don't get me wrong, but they don't always do all these other lovely varieties, because things like these Jupiters haven't got a massive shelf life, so they want ones that won't bruise and won't, But there are other fruit out there that you don't see that I'm lucky I can get hold of that other people don't have. And if you ever see a Jupiter apple, it's worth having because they're really lovely. I really like them. Of course, you get things like the rose hips in the hedgerows. Can anyone remember what rose hips are good for? Rose hips. So what's the other one? Yes, itching powder. It's all the naughty people in the room. That lady at the back there, she looks to me like she's a real troublemaker. Because I remember I went to school on a coach. I used to go to Marwood School, and the coach I went on used to drive all around the villages picking up all the kids. And of course, if you get on there with a couple of rose hips and put them down the back of someone sat in front of you, really, really, really itchy. They're amazing inside. If you ever open up a rose hip, they're little seeds. They're really hairy, and those little hairs are really itchy. So my two boys are going to learn a few tricks off me. Anyway, we're harvesting the maize here, ready for our winter feed here. And there's the maize harvesting. See what a beast that is, isn't it? You wouldn't want to trip over in front of that. And then it's November time. The cows come in there. You can see we do self-feed silage, which again is a bit old-fashioned, but for our herd it works okay. But you can see the silage has gone brown. It's pickled there. You can see it's a brown colour, but it's still full of nutrients and stuff. So they come in about November when we shut the gate. Our young cattle are still out then at that point because we don't need to worry about milking them or anything. They can stay out and sort of extensively graze. We give them a bit of the hay, and then this happens, which we're used to this year, aren't we? We've seen quite a lot of this. We've got some low-lying fields normally where we graze the heifers, and the banks of the river, or the stream that goes through it, quite often burst and flood the fields. So we then got to definitely make sure they're in then. In fact, they're like that now. We've had so much rain this year. It's incredible, isn't it? I don't know about you, but I'm actually just sick of it now. Of course, you get the odd tree blow down and stuff. We make good use of that using my dad and his lovely. Use my dad and his trusty tractor. My dad, one owner from knew that tractor. He bought it brand new in 1956, and you can see that horrible blade there. Since I had the book published, I've actually had a load of guarding put over that blade because I was very conscious. Once we went public with this, it was a bit. But the thing is, my dad he won't wear goggles, he won't wear glasses. But the thing is, he's used it for 60 odd years. I think he's probably got a better idea how it runs than most people. Although, to be honest, this last year I've started doing a lot of the cutting the wood up myself now because I think it's time, Dad, you can back away from the saw blade. But we also employ child labour on the farm to do this. So we get the kids involved with stacking.
Stop putting them up chimneys.
Sorry?
Stop putting them up the chimney.
Stop putting up the chimney, but we get them to stack logs instead. And then, of course, we're coming into December time. We've still got a few of the old apple trees on it, and there's a Morgan sweet tree there with all the mistletoe. I did a thing on Radio Gloucestershire about that mistletoe in December. We went down and picked some for the Radio Gloucestershire newsroom, actually. And there we go. It's lovely. It's amazing, that tree. It's all over it. And then we're coming through on a frosty day there. It's a frosty day. Can anyone remember what a frosty day's like? It's ridiculous, isn't it? I haven't seen proper frost this year. I quite like frosty days because it means the ground's not all wet. Right. Now, this is where I've got to ask you a question, okay? I can either sort of quit now or can go on for 10 minutes. What do you do? 10 minutes? You all right with that? Yeah. I know I've rabbited on quite a long time. Right, okay.